Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece chapter 920. So, this was a very loaded chapter this week, giving us a lot of details about both Oden and very thoroughly describing how Momonosuke and Kinemon came to the future and the events after, which, let's talk about the latter for a bit. Like, we learned that the samurai pretty much came to the future, but pretty much the way of a devil fruit held by Momonosuke's mother called the Time fruit. And trust me, Oda, if you thought that little blurb about Lady Toki traveling from several years in the past pretty much slipped by me, it did not. Because, like, you really gotta think, if Lady Toki had used her abilities several times, then you really gotta wonder exactly when in the past, where specifically in the past she pretty much originally existed. Like, and and depending on when era she was originally born in, you also got to think of what kind of knowledge ended up pretty much died with her. Like I don't. I mean, it's a little far fetched to say, but if she was, if she existed in the time of the Void Century, then yeah, a lot of then yeah, this opens up a lot of gateways for in order for us to learn a lot more about the Void Century. Like it is, it might be a little, it is a little iffy if it might be a little iffy if she actually existed during that time period. But even if she did, like it would be a great opportunity to just learn more about the Void Century and what the frick happened. But and yeah, like I'm sure at one point, like I'm almost hoping that that's the case so we can learn more. But like I said, I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. Um, but yeah, if that's the case, a lot of information died with her. Um, Now, I will admit it's kind of insane that a devil fruit has that kind of power, almost to the point where, if I'm being honest, like the whole thing of the time fruit, it kind of skirts that line of believability for me, even by One Piece standards. Because in I the thing is, I might have believed it more if she was a human, if she was a human ancient weapon, like from like how like the whole situation on Fisherman Island with Shirahoshi. But the fact that it is a devil fruit, it's kind of one of those things where it's believable enough, but there is a questionable aspect to it as well that I'm like, oh, okay, like it works. It works enough. Let's put it that way. But yeah, there is an aspect there that has me going, believe it or not. Oh, like okay, I'll believe it and I'll believe it as it is. But either way, this just opens up a whole lot of doors of exploration in terms of what basically died with, in terms of what in terms of what information had died with Momonosuke's mother. Um, Now, having said that, I love how seamlessly Oda pretty much made all previous events in the manga regarding Kinemon and Momonosuke's group flow into where we currently are now in the story, and it was done. It was done in a way that provided an interesting new perspective, while also giving recap to pretty much those that might have forgotten about these events. And I mean, like with and the interesting thing and about the like and the thing like in terms of the interesting perspective this gives, like it really showcases that yeah, like even that yeah, they pretty much had a reason for pretty much being on Punk Hazard and being on later Dressrosa. Like each pretty much place that they were at, it had its like its core purpose that intertwined with the Straw Hats, but it also had an underlying purpose as well for pretty much being at the location that they were. So yeah, I just love how Oda pretty much made all of these events pretty much seamlessly flow together, and and the thing is, he didn't even need to do a whole lot in order to make it flow. He just needed to give us a little bit of exposition, a little bit of background exposition on why they were there. And yeah, it's one of those things that where it just fits. It just fits. It fits into why they were there with their mission and whatnot. And 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 it was and the funniest thing about the recap portion is that whether by accident, the funny thing is whether by accident or design, uh, all these I guess you could call them missteps, actually served the very purpose of what they were trying to accomplish, pretty much gaming allies. Like it really all just kind of, again, like Oda just made it pretty much flow so naturally to the point where I'm like, Oda, I honestly, I really want to see Oda's like workstation or his office or wherever he draws like One Piece, because honestly, with Oda, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not doubting the man's abilities, far from it. In fact, if anything, I'm praising it. But I really want to see Oda's workstation. Like, I want to fucking know his secret as to how he can keep track of all this shit. It's over the years, I've come to accept it, but at the same time, I want to know how he keeps track of all this shit. Like, is his office like littered with like story notes, or is it just or is it all up here in his head? Does he just have like a photographic memory or something? Like, I want to know how Oda keeps track of all this shit in order to make the story of One Piece just flow so naturally. It's honestly kind of it's honestly kind of insane a lot of the times. Also, quick note too. I'm a dumbass, and only now am I recognizing the other names on those tombstones. So pretty much to correct myself, the whole legend of the rising samurai and the missing scabbards is making a lot more sense in context of the time travel thing. Like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking when I was talking about that, but yeah, it does make a lot more sense here. Um, Also, like I said, we get backstory on Oden himself and how he came to rise in power as daimyo up until the point he was executed. And I'm not gonna lie, we haven't even seen this Shogun Orochi yet. And the more I learn about what this snake in the grass has done, really gets my blood boiling. Because in a lot of ways, he essentially pulled a Doflamingo in order to get rid of Oden. Although in this case, surprisingly, it was done in an even much more subtle way than what Doflamingo did. What Orochi did is he basically took advantage of a very small loophole in order to add credibility to execute an Oden. He basically took advantage of the fact that Oden associate himself with Roger in order to say, the daimyo associated himself with a criminal. We basically have to rise up in revolt and basically and execute the criminal and execute the daimyo for the crimes he committed. But and it's such a small loophole, but it essentially works because he was taking advantage of what happened to Roger at the time, and how everyone was and how even how the government was trying to track down everyone who was associated with Roger after his execution, and basically execute them themselves. So he was basically just doing exactly what the Marines were doing at the time. And yeah, it's amazing how such a small loophole can cause such a big backlash. And Oden himself, it's like pretty much like the series of events that have led up to what Wano Country is now. It's actually kind of amazing, like how it's actually kind of amazing how when you compare what happened to Dressrosa and what happened to Wano here, the similarities are almost unnerving, honestly, in a lot of ways. And I guess in a lot of ways, I guess it would also make sense, definitely considering that the Flamingo and Kaido were associated with each other, they'd have like similar plans. But yeah, to just see what they ended up doing, that they ended up doing pretty much very similar things, is kind of insane. In fact, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if Doflamingo ended up getting the idea from basically Kaido and whatnot. Like, yeah, it's really kind of insane. It's really kind of insane. The only difference is that in this case, that pretty much the good ruler didn't end up getting out so easily. He was killed, whereas the King Riku, he was only exiled or something like that. Although I assume that after this that basically, I assume after all this is said and done that Momonosuke is gonna take on the throne too. So there's that. Um and and we learn the mission is to in fact raid Kaido's and we basically learn the mission at the end is to raid Kaido's stronghold and assassinate his commander or one of his commanders. They just said commander, so I want to assume he only has one, but so I want to assume it's right now that it's just one of his commanders, but it's the commander who holds control over Wano, I assume. So yeah, the mission is to assassinate one of Kaido's commanders, which sounds all well and good, but let's be real here. Between sneak attacks not being Luffy's specialty and the fact that he basically outright said, "Okay, I got it," like, yeah, you know when Luffy says, "Okay, I got it," he doesn't get it. Like, the dude is gonna like, either he's gonna mess shit up or something's gonna happen where he's gonna accidentally mess shit up. Like, it's inevitable with that. But yeah, between sneak attacks not being Luffy's specialty and Zoro getting lost as per usual at like a wharf, like, you know something's about to go to hell, is about to go to hell in a handbasket. In fact, Kinemon's whole line about not waging war might very well be one of the most ironic things he's said, because that's the funny thing about this whole mission to assassinate the Kaido's commander is that it is that just by trying to assassinate him, they'll basically doing just that, waging war. And yet at the same time, it's an understandable plan because it's the only way in order to gain control of Wano from Kaido. So yeah, it's a funny plan in that sense. But yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, any list or Crunchyroll. That and that have been me, signing off. Later, guys.